I kind of like that name. Volume.
Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome to the channel. If you're new, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. We're going back and we revisited in Sabah, and I want to kind of revise my review on him. When he was first released this season, I wasn't so hype on him. Even after using him, after his buff, I'm still not like excited to use him. I think he can work. I do think new players can definitely make this guy work and give you a little bit of edge depending on like what you have access to. And I've been testing this deck. It's relatively a entry player deck because a lot of the cards you use are entry level, except for a few. Of course, there's a few that you just won't have access to unless you played last season and you got some of them. But I think as a whole, this guy can work if you are a newer player and you have, that chance to like test them out. You do want to play certain cards with this guy. I think it definitely helps him out. But like overall, it's very. I'm not like over like. I'm not saying this guy's amazing. I don't think he's as terrible as he was off release. I think he's still an RNG unit and he can do awesome things. But I also want to talk about some things that you can do with him that I didn't know about until I actually start, trying it out. So, in Sabah, objective: have a full front at each location, transform into Apocalypse. Yeah, so he goes into a 4/9. The cool thing about this guy, which I will say, which I did do while testing him, is if you're inflicted, right? If you're going against someone that is inflicting, they fastball you, they hit you with whatever it is. If you have any type of infliction on you in the front row, he will switch anyone out, even himself. If they're negative out, he'll switch them out. What happened was I was in a game, they fastball specialed me with like something with like 20 power, and they hit him before he was already like transformed or whatever. And when he did his ability to switch in something, he just switched himself out. It was pretty cool. I think that's one interaction that I will say that's pretty cool. This guy that is, he will target himself to switch himself out if he's in the negative, which is pretty cool. Here's the deck. I don't even have a name for it yet because like it's not a deck that's good. It just wins everywhere if you're lucky. You do have to challenge yourself to play Quicksilver Domino or Quicksilver Surge. You do need to challenge yourself to play like Debris sometimes in locations, which can backfire. There's a lot of ups in this deck, but there's a lot of lows in this deck. The lows are the RNG plays, like if you're playing Jubilee and she pulls out something terrible and kills the location. If you play Dragon Lord and he pulls something bad, it's going to suck. If you play in Sabah and he switches out something and it just doesn't replace it with anything much better, you have a lot of problems that you might have to deal with. But when you play this deck on an average game, and you're doing everything right, and the fields and locations are like not too punishing, it does feel okay. You can get 20 plus power a little bit everywhere, which isn't like crazy, but when you're in newer player levels and you're going against newer players, having the ability to cheese out a Hulk, cheese out Giganto, just cheese out something really big. Doesn't have to just be these. You can also cheese out anything that's just really big, right, that you wouldn't normally be able to play. You can win locations because of this, because you're fighting people that have limited roster just like you. So he can cheat a little bit when it comes to new player versus new player. Jubilee's a free code. You can get her for free. I think it's this actually is what you would get, which is it's a code. You can go look up all the codes. You get her for free. She kind of goes in this deck, and it works as well because she's doing the same thing. I do not have Lockjaw in this deck because Lockjaw feels bad to play in this deck, mainly due if you use N7 or he pulls out a Lockjaw, you just waste your time. So you just kind of have to replace Lockjaw with this guy and just not use Lockjaw. I do think Blink is the best variation when it comes to doing something like this. I think a Hella Blink deck is just straight up better in every means. So it is something you have to consider. But if you're a new player, you don't have Blink, you know, you don't have the ability to do the Hella Blink deck. This is kind of like a shittier form of what that deck's trying to do with more RNG. With Blink, you can kind of target what you want because it's anything stronger than she is that costs more. So you can really utilize the way she flows. Where with this deck, it's a little bit of a gamble, which you do cut out some of the gamble when you use Quicksilver and Domino. It cuts out some of the RNG. Um, a lot of my games, what tends to happen when I play this deck is I play Quicksilver turn 1 and I play Surge turn 2. Don't know why. I just end up getting her turn 2 all the time. I just have Surge in my hands. Every time I use this deck, Surge is just in my hands. And we used it 8 times because I wanted to get the Season Pass win thing done. I used it about 8 times, or 8 or 9 times, something. I think I lost like 1 or 2 games, but I was doing Conquest. And Surge in this deck's actually kind of nuts for the most part because you can cheat things out. Now, Surge is going to be awesome early on if you can play her turn 2 because she'll make Sabah cheaper to play in turn 3. She'll make Debris easier as well to play out and be slightly bigger. She'll be able to get your Dragon Lord to be cheaper. She's able to get Jubilee to be cheaper, which is nice. Playing Jubilee in turn 3 feels really good. You'll be able to get a lot of things out earlier. The fallback of her, which it's not a bad thing. But if she hits a Fing Fang Foom, you're not going to be mad about it because, one, you don't have the energy to really pull him out anyway, and most of the time you're trying to rely on Dracula to hit that, or like something big for Dracula to spike at the end of the game. If Surge hits something big, whether it's Hulk, Giganto, you're not going to be mad because you get to play them on turn 5 then, which is going to boost your board up anyway, so you're not going to be too disappointed where if Surge aims for something high. It just makes it where you can get your field to be a little bit bigger. Fing Fang Foom is probably Fing Fang Foom definitely is the one that feels the worst, but it allows you to play him in a 6-turn rotation game. So there's also that. For the most part, Surge feels really good on turn 2 in this deck. Like every time I played Surge 2, I'd go Quicksilver, Surge. The deck felt really good. Now, I didn't win every single game. There are decks that straight up just like don't care if you're that big. Ongoing decks just run this deck over because they get bigger easier. You're gonna have other decks like Discard that can just bully this deck. So this deck has a lot of weaknesses. But if you're a new player and you're able to cheese out big things, you might be able to win the field because of it. So I don't completely hate Sabah anymore. I think as an entry card for a new player, if you have him, he feels pretty okay. Now, if you're a veteran player or someone that's been playing for a few months, there are better options that can do his job but better. Blink is just a better version of this guy. There's no objective to be done. You just play Blink and she does her job, which is bring something out bigger. Guaranteed. And Sabah is a budget player, or it's the budget Blink. You know, it's something a little better than Lockjaw, maybe. Kind of. It might be better than Lockjaw, but I don't know. It's in between. The buff that they gave him was not that noticeable. Like, him being a 4/9 isn't that noticeable. You start noticing him and how good he really is whenever he actually pulls something of value to the field. That's when you notice his value. If you hit a Hulk, a Giganto, Fing Fang Foom, a Dragon Lord to pull something else out, like, if you hit those cards, he can feel really powerful. But if you're hitting, like, Debris, you feel pretty bad about it because, like, now you just have rocks in your location. You know, if you're hitting Jubilee and Jubilee pulls something else out and the location is a bunch of low numbers in him, it feels pretty bad. So the RNG is still there for you to lose, but after playing with this guy a little bit and kind of testing the grounds a bit, this deck is okay. I think this deck can get you probably the 80s at. This deck can probably get you to 80s pretty easily when it comes to grinding as a new player if you have enough big things to utilize. If you have Dragon Lord. Dragon Lord does definitely want to be in this deck. Without Dragon Lord, it's kind of icky. Jubilee wants to be in this deck because you're doing the same thing. You do want ways to cheat things out, which is why Jubilee and Dragon Lord are in here. Dracula can feel really good on that last turn if you pull him out and you have nothing but like a Hulk or Giganto in your hand. He can feel really powerful, right? So as an overall whole of the deck, there's something here. And it works nice when it works, and it feels really bad when it doesn't, which is like just the unfortunate down of this character. And Sabanor's decks are just like, it's just the way his decks flow. There's not much you can do to really like change that. It's just you win based off if he pulls something good. You win if they're using Inflict and he's inflicted, or whatever it is inflicted, gets like -20 power and he switches something out for you to fight back. That can feel good. Into Affliction, if it's single target Affliction and it's just like one big thing that's like it's like a fastball, it can feel relatively okay. But outside those parameters, it's just not super like reliable. But it's not bad either. I think the Quicksilver Domino 1-2 feels decent. I think the Quicksilver Surge feels really strong at times. It feels really strong at times. Getting in 7 or out in turn 3 is really good. Getting, you know, Dragon Lord out in turn 4, getting a Jubilee out in turn 3, it can feel really good. I had a game where I got Hulk out in turn 5, and I was like, okay, we're brewing something here. But you have to have Surge for that to happen. And as a new player, you probably don't have Surge, right? So you're going to have to look for something else that you can use to utilize. You're just going to have to do something else. Surge made this deck feel a lot better. You could use Magic, but then you're delaying your own demise. This deck doesn't really want to play Magic, even though it has a Fing Fang Foom. It doesn't really want Magic. You're trying to win on turn 6, not go to turn 7, because your board is so overloaded. So it's just one of those things you're going to have to work out. You could just replace Surge with something big and go like with the Armazola, or I don't know. What would be something that might be worthwhile in this deck? Not a Destroyer. Like, if you have a Death, that might be pretty worthwhile to pulling out, right? If you're going against a Destroy player early on, you could pull her out, you know? If you have... no, not Taskmaster. You don't really have many options. Apocalypse, maybe? Like, Leaders might work. Like, you're limited to very little. I guess Black Panther would feel pretty okay. If you pull out a Black Panther, it'd be pretty okay. So, like, you have enough tools where you can make it work as a new player, but, like, Surge definitely made this deck feel a lot better when it comes to what I could play on certain turns. I think that little extra kick definitely helped out a lot. So, let me go into the stats real fast. So, here we go. The stats are off because for some reason my snap sync has just been really weird and not registering the right deck. So what was it? It said 4-1. I played 9 to 10 games. I lost 2 games out of the 10 games. Like, I think it was 10 games, and I lost 2 games. The deck was okay. It was okay. I was fighting players that were running weird things. If you go into a meta deck, which you shouldn't as a new player, or a middle of the ground player, you shouldn't. You'll be okay. But if you're fighting actual like meta decks, you're going to struggle hard, because the locations, as well as that player, whoever it is you're fighting, will challenge your deck. And if they block locations, if they make it where you're unable to fill up the front row, this deck will feel very bad. But this deck will feel pretty good in some of those unique niches. Like, if you go against the Galactus, you can just get rid of the Hobgoblin, essentially, with Insavenor if you're lucky, and switch it out. So there is some ups to this. Decent to Inflict, terrible into Ongoing, not so good into, like, meta stuff that's going around right now, but you're big enough and safe enough in the most parts of the game to where you're not overly scared of a Gambit. Unless they rock him early, then it's going to really suck. I never went against Phantom X, so I don't know how that would feel. I feel like Phantom X would probably dominate this deck just because how much Affliction you actually have to fight against with that. Star-Lord probably is going to run this deck over pretty easily. And a turn is probably going to destroy this deck pretty easily. Like, it's going to be better against weaker decks. And that's what you should be focusing on with this deck, is if you play this deck in Conquest, it's going to be relatively decent in silver and gold. if you're in the lower tiers of like grinding your infinite out and you're still like in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, this deck can win some games. I don't think this deck can win anything above 80. 80 to 90, you got to get really lucky to really snap for cubes confidently. You're snapping on games where you have Surge turn 2 and you have Insavinor in your hand by turn 4. Like, because if you don't get him, the deck feels bad. If you don't have Surge out turn 2, the deck can feel a little weird. It's just, man, I don't like crapping on this guy's like front porch, but like he is a risky card to use, even though he has a high payoff. He has a risky card. He is very risky. I don't hate him as much as I did off release. I still think he's a mediocre card, but I think he's the type of mediocre card that new players can take advantage of and feel good about, where players that have more access to more cards won't feel as confident into this guy unless you really have a lot of Series 5s and Series 4 packs that are cards that are just like you're overloaded with. Like if you're me, you have a lot of cards, but I don't think you have enough cards to really have this guy shine. There's still like major cards that I would like to have to make this guy work better. But even if I got those cards, I still think the Hella Blink deck is just straight better and more consistent to use over this guy. This guy's an RNG fest unit and it's gambling. It's gonna gamble a lot of your cubes. But that's all I really wanted to talk about is N7or. Give him a second, like, praise after revisiting him after his buff. Do I still think he's bad? Yes. Essentially, he's pretty mid. In my, honest review, he's a pretty mid character. Can he shine? Sure. A lot of cards can shine in this game. Will he lose you games? Probably, but he can win you games too. He's very inconsistent, and that's the thing you just gotta understand when you're running this guy. He's very inconsistent. But sometimes inconsistencies are the strongest thing in Marvel Snap, so hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think of N7or, and yeah, I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.